Jon Jones says after the fight, he's never had an opportunity to fight someone who is considered the GOAT of a certain weight class or of a certain organization. Whereas Stipe Miocic, when you look at his reign as heavyweight champion of the UFC, he's definitely the guy that we point to as the greatest heavyweight champion of all time. And now that fight is in talks to be set to get Jon Jones, who we just discussed is in the conversation for the GOAT as it pertains to the UFC, and now Stipe Miocic, who's the greatest heavyweight in UFC history. How excited are you for that fight after watching what Jon was able to do to Cyril Gane, and then knowing what Stipe Miocic has been through, experienced, overcome, and become in the heavyweight division? How do you see that matchup going?
I think it's going to be much tougher. You know, I said this after the fight. I said Stipe Miocic will be much tougher for Jon Jones. But the reality is this, RC, like, all you got to do is last 3 minutes for it to be a tougher fight. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to take 3 minutes to be in a tougher fight against Jones than he had against Cyril Gane. I believe that Stipe's championship experience will show itself in the fight. I believe that Stipe's fighting ability will show itself in the fight. And I also believe that Stipe Miocic's NCAA wrestling pedigree will help him in the fight. Stipe can box, Stipe can wrestle, and Stipe also has championship experience. So, RC, in those moments, in those dark moments that we spoke about Cyril not necessarily being prepared for because he didn't have the background for it, Miocic has that. Miocic has that in spades. Miocic has been in there with the level of competition that tells you that he should be able to compete with anyone. Having fought me 3 times, having fought Fabricio Verdum, having fought Alistair Overeem, having fought so many great athletes, Francis Ngannou twice, having fought all those guys, you expect Stipe to be ready to fight against a guy like Jon Jones and not be intimidated by Jon Jones. Would I be comfortable saying Stipe Miocic is going to win the fight? No. But I'm saying that it's going to be a much more difficult challenge for Jones going up to 265 pounds.
DC, it honestly won't be very hard to be a tougher fight for Jon Jones than what we saw against Cyril Gane. I mean, that was one of those fights that just happened like that. He immediately took over. I don't see that happening with a guy like Stipe Miocic, who's been in there with you 3 times. He's been in there with Francis Ngannou. There isn't going to be this fear or this awe of Jon Jones. But to me, DC, I'm more interested in the skill set. When I look at you having fought these men, you know, together 5 times, 3 in there with Stipe Miocic, 2 in there with Jon Jones. When you look at fighting style, skill, power, stamina, cardio, ability, all of these things put together, who would you lean to and say they have the advantage in some of those things when you look at this matchup?
You know, when I just break it down like that, in terms of the power, it's got to be Miocic. He hits harder with his hands. Jones obviously kicks harder. Stamina, I'd say they're pretty even. Kicking, Jon Jones holds the advantage. I believe that everything else is kind of a wash in reality, like the wrestling, the cardio. They're both A+ in those skills and in those areas. Like, those guys are as good as they come in regards to mixed martial arts and fighting. Also, Miocic is tall. Miocic is big. Miocic has the ability to match Jones in a lot of those areas where Jones holds those advantages. But the reality is, man, after what Jon Jones did last weekend in his heavyweight debut, it's going to be very difficult to imagine any heavyweight beating this guy right now.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.